What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. So the Bone Thugs and Harmony versus 3 6 Mafia versus battle is about to go down Thursday, December 2nd in Los Angeles. And I dropped a couple videos kind of previewing the Bone side of the battle in terms of what this means for Bone's legacy and how this is kind of an opportunity for Bone to get the much overdue recognition that they have deserved for like a long time. So I want to accompany that prior video with this video, and in this video I want to get into what the actual 20 songs that Bone should feature on this night, which by the way I hear that all 5 members are supposed to participate: Layzie, Krayzie, Bizzy, Wish, and Flesh. Bizzy obviously was a wild card. A lot of people have been wondering if Bizzy's gonna show up, because that would just be ultimately disappointing and sadly all too familiar if we only get 3 or 4 of the members. But it sounds like we're getting all 5, and I couldn't be more excited about that. I hope everybody conducts themselves well and represents for Bone Thugs and Harmony to try to present them in the best and truest light possible. But yeah, let's get right into the 20 songs that Bone Thugs and Harmony should feature and perform on this versus night. And since we have only 20 to deal with and Bone has a very extensive catalog, you know, I wanted to actually represent this in the most authentic way possible, and I actually went to a storage unit of mine to see if I could dig up any of the CDs, any of the Bone Thugs and Harmony related CDs, or even some of their affiliates, Poetic Hustlers, for instance, Trials and Tribulations. And since this is 20 songs deep, we probably won't get any of the solo efforts. For instance, you know, Bizzy Bone obviously had his Heaven's Movie album. He had his The Gift album, which was the second Bizzy solo, and it might have even been better than Heaven's Movie. This one is like 98. This one I believe is 2000. This is the one that featured Thugs Cry, The Roof Is on Fire, Nobody Could Stop Me. But again, The Gift, solid solo album, as was Krayzie Bone's Thug Mentality album. But since, again, this is 20 songs and this is a group versus, I don't think we're going to get the solo stuff. By the way, this is a Flesh and Bone's debut. Thugs, Trues, Humbly United, Gathering Souls. I know you guys remember this with World So Cruel. That's the one with Rev Run. But yeah, now out of these 20, I basically broke it down into, there are 13 that I feel like you have to have. For instance, like major singles and just songs like the collaborations with Biggie Smalls and Tupac. You got to have those. So there are 13 must-haves in this list. There are 4 you probably really want to have, like really should have. And then there are 3 that are kind of wild cards and just are my suggestions in terms of, yeah, let's try to make room for these 3s. And that's going to round out into a list of 20. But I'm actually going to start this chronologically, starting with the beginning of Bone. We're not going to get any Faces of Death. That's their early independent release. We're going to go right into Creeping on a Come Up. That's their 1994 EP, and the 2 must-haves from this album would be Thuggish Ruggish Bone. That's the single that pretty much launched them into stardom. And then For the Love of Money. Those are the 2 must-haves. And the one that is I really strongly suggest you want to feature is No Surrender. That's the one that Bizzy kicks it off after you hear the cop siren. You hear the, my nigga just handle your business, so can I get a witness? And so he just comes out like a bat out of hell. Now, Bizzy's got a couple different styles. He's got that really, like bouncing off the wall style. He's got the very laid back style that he showcased mostly on East 1999 Eternal. That's my favorite Bizzy Bone style. But yeah, the one that you heard years later on Notorious Thugs, 7 a.m. walked in the morning. That's that same style that he portrays on No Surrender. So again, Thuggish Ruggish Bone, For the Love of Money, featuring the late Eazy-E, which features a much more subdued and kind of calm sounding, different sounding Flesh and Bone than the Flesh that would develop on this Flesh and Bone solo album. Very different from the Flesh that kicks off the opening verse to For the Love of Money. So those are the 3 from Creeping on a Come Up that I would strongly suggest. This was a multi-platinum EP. This came before East 1999, which is where you have to go to next. East 1999, I believe to be Bone Thugs and Harmony's greatest album. I know a lot of people would say Art of War, and you can make a lot of strong arguments for that, but 17 songs long. I just feel like from top to bottom, there's much less filler. Every song just about is a damn good song. Very interesting. DJ Unique just killed it with these beats. Like, this feat alone. This album is a reason why I would say DJ Unique is one of the more underrated producers in hip-hop history, because he produced just about all of the beats on East 1999 Eternal. And from this album, the must-haves are First of the Month. That was the first single off this. It was a huge single at the time. That summer of 1995, that First of the Month drop, it was everywhere. It was on that channel, The Box. It was all over the radio. So you've got to have First of the Month, and you've got to have the Crossroads. Not the original Crossroad that featured on East 1999's first release, but when they re-released it, it was after they had dropped a single, the Crossroads single, which was known as the DJ Unique's Mo Thug remix, different from just the word Crossroad that featured on the first release of East 1999 Eternal. So this is the one where it starts off, bone, 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 bone. That whole one. The one that was their #1 hit, the biggest single, the biggest song in Bone Thugs and Harmony's entire discography, The Crossroads. That is a classic. And, you know, the original Crossroad was a good song. Like, that was actually one of my favorite songs from East 1999 Eternal. But the Crossroads is the undeniable smash that you have to feature in this verses. So aside from those two must-haves from East 1999 and, you know, the Crossroads release, the three I would strongly suggest including from this East 1999 album are Mo Murda. That's the second to last song on the album. That is probably my favorite Bone Thugs and Harmony song in Bone's history. It's preceded by the Mr. Ouija 2 interlude that leads perfectly into Mo Murda. And, you know, I don't know how much of the songs that they're going to be performing. Sometimes I'd imagine it's just going to be one verse, sometimes two, but certain songs, damn, it's going to be hard not to go through the entire song. And on Mo Murda, all four verses are lethal on this one. Krayzie Bone kicks it off with what I think was one of the best hip-hop verses of all time. Like, you listen to the execution from the Dear Mr. Ouija, better know who the boss is. Some nigga if you want to get tossed to the river. That one is just an undeniably precise, scientific, the flow on that thing. Krayzie Bone's opening verse to Mo Murda, to me, is a must. Now, if they can make it all the way to Bizzy's fourth verse, the final verse, it's a long song, almost 6 minutes long. I don't think they're going to do the whole Mo Murda. We don't have all night, so I don't think we're going to get to Bizzy Bone's final verse in Mo Murda. But if we could at least get Krayzie's and maybe Layzie's second verse from Mo Murda, I'd just be happy to feature that hook, that beat, and those opening two verses, and I'd be happy. But Mo Murda, you've got to feature Mo Murda, just because that's almost like one of those, like the people's favorite. When this album was released, people loved Mo Murda, even though it wasn't a single. So I think that they should go with Mo Murda. I think that their single, it was actually the single after First of the Month, it's track 2. It's the title track, East 1999. That's the one with the Cleveland is the city where we come from, so run, run. At the end of the song, East 1999. I feel like you've got to put that one on this list as well. Strongly urge them playing East 1999, the single, which didn't really sound like a single. It sounded more like an album cut, very dark beat. I mean, these guys were basically trap before trap. Like, a lot of trap rappers really owe at least a portion of their style to not only Bone Thugs and Harmony, but the original 666 Mafia, when they had like Lord Infamous, rest in peace, and Koopsta, rest in peace. Basically, the finesse rappers from 3-6 Mafia have passed away. DJ Paul and Juicy J, they were more like the different cadence. They didn't flow with the finesse of Lord Infamous or Koopsta. So I don't know how 3-6 are going to perform a lot of these tracks here. But yeah, Bone Thugs and Harmony, yeah, Mo Murda with that slowed up, almost screwed sounding sample. They caught a lot of flack, and this actually led into some of their beef at the time with groups like 3-6 Mafia coming out of the Midwest, because a lot of people, Freestyle Fellowship on the West Coast, thought that Bone was biting styles, which would lead to the Art of War album, where Bone was basically barking back at all of their Bone clones and haters, basically. But this was like the murderous album, East 1999 Eternal. So another song that I would strongly recommend them having is Buddha Lovers, which was like the weed anthem at the time. Super slowed down song, super mellow. It's not even a rap song. But just how innovative that was, and the way they used that Isley Brothers sample, which the Crossroads used a different Isley Brothers sample. That one used Make Me Say It Again Girl, while Buddha Lovers use choosy lovers. But yeah, just the way that they harmonize the vocals on that super laid back Buddha Lovers, I would love to see them actually try to execute and perform that one. They don't have to rap super fast, they just have to sing a bit. We'll see how their voices have held up over the years. I know Bizzy can still rap his ass off. I actually saw him a few years ago in Anaheim. I'll post a link in the comments, but I shot a live video of Bizzy Bone performing Thug's Cry from his Heaven's Movie solo album, and his execution didn't have a backing track. So it was all him basically, and you could hear how well he executed those very hyperspeed verses. But yeah, I would strongly urge them to play Buddha Lovers, and then I had a couple should haves. One of these two songs they should have, if I could like introduce a wild card. Track 3 from East 1999 Eternal, called Eternal. That's the one where the hook goes like put them on the run with him in shotgun. And so it's basically Krayzie Bone, I believe, and Layzie Bone on that chorus. Track 3, it's right after East 1999's, which is track 2, leads into Eternal, track 3, maybe as a wild card. Also, Mr. Bill Collector, one of my favorite songs from this album. I would say they should either do Eternal or Mr. Bill Collector. That is just that beat and the flow, super laid back track. One of those two songs I would love. So again, from East 1999 Eternal, the must-haves are First of the Month and the Crossroads. The strongly suggests are East 1999, Mo Murda, and Buddha Lovers. And then the perhaps we can include would either be Eternal or Mr. Bill Collector. So that's what I think they should play from East 1999 Eternal. Now, around that same time, they were on a lot of soundtracks. They had the Panther soundtrack, which they had a song where they delivered the last verse called The Points. The same song had like Buckshot and a lot of other prominent rappers at the time, but they just have a super fast flow at the end of the points. I don't necessarily think that they should feature that, but I did find the Panther soundtrack, so I just wanted to mention. Now, I couldn't find the Great White Hype soundtrack, but on that soundtrack, Bone had a song called Shoot 'Em Up. Very smooth, very laid back track. I do think that's another one of my 3 or 4 wild cards here. Shoot 'Em Up from the Great White Hype soundtrack. You know, it was also featured on this like collection, Volume 1, that Bone had released, you know, pretty much after they had most of their hits. So this was like 98. They finally released like sort of a greatest hits, and Shoot 'Em Up is track 3. So yeah, I would love to hear that one. But again, they have a pretty competitive catalog, discography, so it's going to be tough to choose. But yeah, if you stick with my plan on this one, you could fit Shoot 'Em Up in here. Now, after they had that run through East 1999, so at this point they've had Creepin' on a Come Up, they've had a lot of successful soundtrack songs, or at least nice, cool, popular among hardcore rap fan songs on soundtracks. Another one was Everyday Thing. That was on the show soundtrack. But they had also had a song after they released the Crossroads. Now we're in 96. This is after they re-released East 1999 Eternal. And then they had a song from the Set It Off soundtrack. Big successful single called Days of Our Lives. That to me is a must-have here. Again, it wasn't featured on the album, although they did feature it on this Greatest Hits, but it was on the Set It Off soundtrack, Days of Our Lives. That was like the really, really good song that kind of held us down between the East 1999 album and the Art of War double album. When they finally returned, they returned with a single called Look Into My Eyes. They need to play Look Into My Eyes, just because that was a single, a big successful single. It was on like the Batman Forever soundtrack as well. But yeah, track 3, disc 1, Look Into My Eyes from the Art of War, I feel is a must-have. Another must-have is a song right after that on this album, disc 1, track 4, called Body Rot. I said the war shouldn't stop until these cops body rot, body rot, body rot. Like, that was a pretty hardcore song. I'm surprised they played it on the radio. It is pretty harsh even by today's standards. Listen to Krayzie Bone's opening verse to Body Rot. He is mad. And again, this is the era where Bone is dissing their clones and their haters, but this one, they are just going off on the popo. Around the same time, they had like a compilation where I think it was on Priority Records. They released a greatest old school rap compilation where they had today's rappers basically doing tribute versions of some of the old school classics. And around the same time, Bone did this Body Rot song they also had a cover of NWA's, because remember the Eazy-E reference, Eazy-E put Bone on, signed them, basically was their mentor, all of that. Had a song called F the Police, and Bone had a cover of that. In the beginning, there was rap compilation, and that one only featured, I believe, Krayzie Bone and Layzie Bone. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that they feature that one here, but Body Rot, yeah, they need to play that one here. That was like a pseudo single where they didn't have a music video. It wasn't an official single, but it played on the radio a lot just because of how dope and just intense sounding. The beat was sick. The Bizzy Bone's second verse, I heard, I murder. He sounds like he's getting his like Michael Jackson on in the beginning of that verse, and then he just sounds like he was shot out of a rocket once the verse kicks into high gear. But yeah, Body Rot, another one that they need to have from The Art of War is obviously their collaboration with Tupac. Thug Love, that's track 2 on disc 2. Tupac just lights the track on fire, but only after Bizzy Bone sets it off with his first verse. So on Notorious Thugs, another must-have, which again, this isn't on a Bone album, but this is on Biggie Smalls' Life After Death. Notorious Thugs is track 1 on disc 2 from Life After Death. Classic rap song. That's one of Bone's most famous songs. Biggie famously kills that opening verse in the triple cadence flow, making it appropriate for a Bone collab. Bizzy Bone just lights it on fire, and Bizzy Bone comes with that aggressive style, just like bouncing off the walls, spastic as all hell. So yeah, they need to play Notorious Thugs, the Biggie collab, and they need to play Thug Love, the Tupac collab from The Art of War. So one more song that they need to have, in my opinion, from The Art of War is one of their final singles from the album, If I Could Teach the World. It's kind of one of those like happy, feel-good, kumbaya, let's hold hands and like join in on this thug nature, let's make a better tomorrow type of songs. Why do I stay high? Like, If I Could Teach, that's, I believe, track 12 on disc 1. That one, I think they need to play here. And I do have one wild card, not a strongly suggest, but if we could find a way to fit this one in, it'll really like just add to how dynamic of a group Bone is. And that is track 2, disc 1. So that's the song before Look Into My Eyes. It's basically the song that kicks off the album because they have a retaliation intro where DJ Unique is basically talking, and they have that like that ha 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 voice that has featured on basically all the Bone albums up to this point. So that's track 1. The song that I want to see them play is track 2, Handle the Vibe. That one actually samples KRS-One's Love Is Gonna Get Ya, and the first 2 verses are just so emblematic on how must-hear Bone Thugs were in this 1994 to 97 era. That span, because Bizzy kicks off the opening verse after they go into the first chorus with Krayzie saying, as we ride by the end of the night, where you envision how thugsters play, can you handle the vibe? Like, they kill the chorus, first of all, and then Bizzy Bone just sounds like, oh my God. Like, you don't get more turned up than how Bizzy comes in. It sounds like his eyes are spinning as he's rapping. And then Krayzie Bone comes in with the second verse, and it's even faster than Bizzy's opening verse. So if they could find a way to work in Handle the Vibe, I would love it. So again, from this album, the must-haves are Look Into My Eyes, Body Rot, Thug Love, and If I Could Teach the World. And then the very nice to have song would be Handle the Vibe. And again, Notorious Thugs from Biggie Smalls' Life After Death album. Now, around the same time, Mariah Carey dropped her Butterfly album. And Bone was so hot at this time that, you know, she had wanted to collaborate with Layzie Bone specifically, but he didn't make it onto the track. The 2 that did make it onto the track were Krayzie Bone and Wishbone, actually. Krayzie and Wish featured on Breakdown, track 6 from Mariah Carey's Butterfly album. They need to play that just because it was a Mariah Carey collab and it's Bone and Mariah Carey. Come on, like, you're not gonna play that? Good verses too, but this was also the part of the era where it was clear that Bizzy Bone was no longer like a full-time participant. Now, he had already been showing signs of this. He wasn't in the Days of Our Lives music video in '96. He would be missing from a lot of interviews, but yeah, he was absent on this collab as well. And in a lot of Bone's features going forward, he was missing from that. Now, I will segue right now to talk about like Poetic Hustlers and the Mo Thugs Family Scriptures project, where they had a single called Thug Devotion. Very good compilation. This is when Bone was starting their own label. They had groups like The Graveyard Shift, Poetic Hustlers, and then they had like a part 2 to that, which was Family Reunion. This is where they introduced, what was her name? Felicia, and that's where Krayzie Bone and Felicia had the song It's All Good. I didn't add that to this list, but that was a big single. Again, Thug Devotion was a single here. Sick album. A lot of good album cuts on this one. Like some of those Bone affiliates like Trey, Too True, they were pretty solid. Bizzy Bone is nowhere to be found on this Mo Thugs compilation, Family Scriptures, nor is he featured anywhere on Mo Thugs' follow-up Family Reunion album. But again, this is the one that had like that white rapper Powder P that a lot of people were kind of intrigued by. He was on a song called Ghetto Cowboy, which was kind of a hit. Like, if they did include it, that'd be interesting. I don't think they're going to include that, and I don't know if they're going to include All Good, because maybe they, you know, include some Mo Thugs work, but I'm keeping this one to either Bone, Thugs and Harmony songs, like no, not an affiliate project album, but Bone songs specifically, or when you have multiple members from Bone featured on a track, like on Mariah's Breakdown or Biggie Smalls' Notorious Thugs. So yeah, it would be interesting if they could fit in some, you know, Mo Thugs, but we're gonna keep it with the group here. But yeah, I mean, All Good, it was a big single, Krayzie Bone and Felicia, and it could replace one of those nice to haves like Shoot 'Em Up, Eternal, or Mr. Bill Collector, or even Handle the Vibe. But I really want them to play Handle the Vibe. So yeah, after that, you know, Bizzy released that Heaven's Movie album. Krayzie would release the Thug Mentality solo album, which, I mean, damn, like there are some songs that are definitely list worthy here. I won't go down the list, but anything from Heated Heavy to the song with Mariah to the song Silence with the Graveyard Shift. The one with Mariah was called I Still Believe. That was a sick single. He had We Starvin' with E40 and Gangsta Boo. He had Armageddon with Soulja Boy. Not that Soulja Boy, but Bone had an affiliate named Soulja Boy, spelt differently, and this was years before Soulja Boy. Years before that, there was Soulja Boy from Mo Thugs. But yeah, I don't think we're going to get anything from here, but check this album out if you've never heard it. Damn good double disc, double album. A lot of good features too. But yeah, Bone went on a hiatus. They started doing their solo thing for a while. They did that Family Scriptures follow-up Family Reunion. And then they finally came back in 2000 and released BT&H, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Resurrection. The first single on this was Resurrection, Paper Paper. That is a must-have. That was kind of like a Bone is back type of single. So yeah, I would love for them to play the Resurrection single. This was a pretty good album. It wasn't as good, in my opinion, as Art of War, East 1999, or the EP Creeping on a Come Up, even though Creeping on a Come Up was a very short EP, only like 8 tracks deep, and out of those 8 tracks, only like 5 of them are songs. So it's really hard to compare Resurrection with Creeping on a Come Up, but you know, Ecstasy was a good song. You know, this album actually featured a lot more Flesh and Bone than any other Bone project before, aside from obviously Bone's or Flesh and Bone's solo work. But Flesh was on damn near every song on BT&H Resurrection. So this is kind of the album where they made him like an official. I mean, he was always Bone, but you know, he had legal issues, different reasons contractually why he wasn't on all the Bone projects or on more songs. He was the fifth dog. That was his nickname. Some people classified him as a Bone member. Some kind of looked at him as almost a Bone affiliate. But you know, from a spirit of the group standpoint, he was a member. Just wasn't featured as much as the other 4, but he is featured a ton on BT&H Resurrection. But yeah, the one must-have on here is Resurrection, Paper Paper. Even though, you know, Change the World was a good song, that was a little like If I Could Teach the World, one of those feel-good songs. I like the song Battle Zone, but yeah, I don't think we're gonna get too much from this album aside from Resurrection, Paper Paper. And the final song that I think Bone will feature, should feature, it was a big successful single with Akon from their Thug World Order album. It was I Tried. Oh, you know what? Let me take that back. This was actually their 2002 album, Thug World Order, and this had all the members. This was like another comeback because their last album was in 2000. 2 years later, they came back with Thug World Order. I actually don't think any songs from this album will be featured on this verses. Nothing against the album. Like Cleveland is the City with Avant was a decent song. Money Money was probably my favorite song from the album. Guess Who's Back with Livez and Bone 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 track 2. Those were all pretty decent songs. Bad Weed Blues was another, you know, weed anthem in its own way. But so much of the Bone mystique and lore and everything had kind of vanished because people were tired of not seeing Bizzy, even though Bizzy's on this album. And I mean, this is just years after Bone's prime. So, good album. I don't think we're going to get anything from this album on the verses. Oh, actually, they had Get Up and Get It. Gotta get up and get it. With 3LW and Felicia. That was a single. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be featured here unless they go like overtime with additional songs. But the song that will get featured and needs to get featured is what I had just mentioned. I Tried, featuring Akon. I guess I don't have the Strength and Loyalty album. That album was 2006. That was 4 years after Thug World Order. So that was really like a comeback album for Bone, even though I think the entire album, if I remember correctly, lacked Bizzy Bone. So by this time, he was basically out. He would come back later, and again, you know, they don't release a ton of music under Bone Thugs and Harmony with all the members. The individual members, like, you know, Layzie, Bizzy releases a ton of stuff. They all release stuff individually, but they haven't been coming together for full Bone albums in like some time now. But yeah, those are the 20 songs that should be featured here. We'll see how many of them they actually feature. But yeah, let me know if I left anything out that needs to be on this list, or if I included anything that it's like, nah, son, yeah, that shouldn't be featured here. But yeah, I can't wait for this versus. Let me know what your favorite Bone Thugs and Harmony album is. And again, give me a list. It doesn't have to be the full 20, but name some songs that you think need to be featured in this verses. I can't wait to see how well they execute here. I wonder if they're going to have backing tracks because their verses require a ton of breath control. So I think you're going to have some backing tracks. I hope they perform well. I hope they rehearse because, you know, in a lot of their older concerts, and I've been to a few Bone shows in my day, and, you know, they weren't the best performers. So we'll see how that comes through in this very high profile versus battle. But yeah, please leave your comments in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.